So welcome back to Two Creeks Farm here in Bowden, Georgia. I'm Eric,
I'm Mark.
and today we thought we'd talk a little bit about disappointment and authenticity. So the idea here is, a lot of times I think in life, in making these videos, for instance, in order to be true to what we perceive, true to our experience, faithful to however it is we are perceiving things, we have to take a chance on disappointing others. And that sets up a kind of tension that I think is really interesting in our lives, the tension between, courting disappointment in other people or courting disapproval even in other people in order to be true or faithful in some way to ourselves.
Well, and that starts at a very early age too, because I think you probably had the same kind of environment in school as I did, a similar environment in the 60s, late 60s and 70s, that you were encouraged to seek the approval of the teachers. You wanted, because the better you could get along with the teachers, the better you would have, a better time you would have of it in class. So that sets the stage for authenticity right there. I was raised in a small, rural, conservative church environment too, and that was even more stringent. The call to seek approval and to not disappoint, and so that it becomes sort of a mantra.
Yeah. Grades I think are a lot about that, especially as you mentioned, Mark, like early on in elementary school. I remember being so ecstatic at getting an excellent written on my paper by the teacher. And of course, then the question is, what's the sort of bigger lesson lurking in the background? Well, the bigger lesson is one of obedience, and especially obedience according to, all of the strictures of not disappointing others.
Enculturation to of societal norms. I mean, there's just a huge there's a huge body of work that's gone into trying to explicate all of these different elements that produce the citizenry of which we are a part. Political science and psychology and sociology and even anthropology is involved partly in trying to explain and understand how we come to be who we are, and a lot of that goes back to this sort of drive toward not disappointing, but it has an interesting twist on it too. For example, a friend of mine, her niece couldn't figure out how to get a car rented. She's 28 years old. Well, it turns out, because she's visiting for the summer, it turns out that her mother has generally always enabled her with things like this, or with most any significant decision in her life, even offering to come up and spend a couple of weeks with her to help get her settled in and different things when she was going through a time with her boyfriend this summer. So she's missed some work because of it. And so rather than enabling her, my friend, the aunt of this girl, said, I can't take you to get your car today because you knew a week ago you were going to have to arrange this. And so she risked disappointing her niece, but she was authentic in the process.
Mm-hmm.
And she hopefully taught the girl that there is not always going to be somebody there to enable us. So my point is that there's some codependency kinds of things that come into play here with disappointment, disapproval, approval matrix. And it's kind of all tied together, and it gets a little ugly at times.
Oh yeah, it definitely gets ugly. I think that Authenticity is easy when who and what we are easily aligns with what other people want us to be and expect us to be.
Yeah.
Then, it's very easy to be authentic because there's no tension that comes into it with respect to other people and the social terrain more generally. It's authenticity becomes a challenge.
Well, and that's of course from this Jungian standpoint, that's our persona mostly, is that mask that we meticulously develop and keep on for, and some of us even have more than one persona. And it's even found its way into the vernacular of we wear different hats.
Yeah, and at some point, it's when you look at the issue of authenticity with respect to, well, what's the easiest way to get through your life? And probably in a very practical way, the easiest way is never to be authentic. To always defer to what other people want and what other people expect, because when we defer to what other people want and expect, well, usually we get their approval and we get whatever fruits are commensurate with their approval, and so things, our lives become well lubricated in a sense, like we can sort of go through very easily and so on. So then the obvious question is, well, why would we ever want to be authentic? What would ever sort of motivate that if the easiest way of getting through our lives, the most well-lubricated way, would be simply to defer to whatever society wants, the world wants, the people around us want, and so on? Like, what would ever motivate that?
Well, of course, then if you do that, that's going to build up a residual repository of anxiety, of neurosis and complex, and lots of other symptomatology. I think of a lifetime of never being authentic.
Yeah, I think in our culture we have the myth. I'm not sure about the extent to which this is actually verifiable in reality, but we have at least the myth of the midlife crisis.
Yeah.
Right. And I think a lot of when I see that, a lot of what I see is people who arrive probably in their 40s or mid 40s is probably sort of the stereotypical age for that. And they discovered that, my God, I've been living according to other people's measures and other people's rules so thoroughly that, like, I've never really gotten what it is I've been wanting all along. And, when they go out and they do, and people will do silly things sometimes, like they'll go out and get a red Corvette because they've always wanted one or something like that. But I think what's really at the base of that, although it looks silly on the surface, is something. There's something, I think, kind of positive about a midlife crisis. It's because people are reevaluating their lives and they're discovering that they've been sort of deferred. All of their deep desires at the level of who and what they are have been deferred for such a long period of time that now they're going to take a chance on looking usually like an adolescent is what it boils down to, like an adolescent, because they've been sort of stopped up for so long that.
But there's an authenticity to that.
Yeah, it's a quest for authenticity.
Yeah,
it looks silly and probably a lot of the time it's very superficial and very sort of regressive and adolescent and so on. But that sort of deep at the core is like they're struggling to have something like an authentic moment or an authentic life for a little while.
And now here's an interesting thing about that too, is sometimes when that happens, somebody else might say, well, I'm really disappointed in this with you because this is not what I was expecting. This doesn't seem like you.
Yeah.
And so there's this accumulated kind of assumption about someone's way of living or whatever way of being, and when that changes with a situation like that, that leads to the idea of disappointment, because the other can't understand what they're seeing here,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't know how to take it up, instead of taking it for what it is,
Yeah.
which is a search for an attempt toward authenticity.
Yeah. And I think also, along with that, comes the cultivation of a kind of courage, I think, very often. That in order to look silly, in order to court disappointment in others, I think requires a kind of courage in us, a quality of heart. We get that word courage from the ancient Latin cor cordis in Latin, which is the word that means heart, So it's a quality of our hearts.
And it tends to foster camaraderie, and it tends to foster authentic relations with others when that can happen. And I'll give you sort of a stereotypical Hollywood example of that. For me, anyway, is there was a movie 10 or 12 years ago with John Travolta and Tim Allen and William Macy, I think, with Wild Hogs, with the three guys, three completely different. They're very good buddies in real life, different jobs, different careers, but they have this kind of unified midlife crisis, and they get their motorcycles and they're going across the country, and they get in escapades and sticky situations
And hijinks.
And shenanigans,
And antics.
antics and shenanigans, and tomfoolery.
And tomfoolery.
Even occurs a couple times. But what comes out of that is this sort of a renewed. They're still the best of friends, but their best of friendness is on a more authentic level now,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
because they've been through this tomfoolery and the hijinks and the antics, and seen each other at their worst, so to speak.
Yeah, and probably at their best.
Yeah.
I think a lot of, when we go through ordeals with each other, it has a way of bonding people together. Soldiers in boot camp,
Mm-hmm.
will report this, or soldiers in combat, or, whenever we've been through something like extremely trying.
Yeah.
I know as a musician, like being in a band, which can be very trying sometimes and demanding. And boy, you see if you're in a band with someone, you see them in every mood that they have. And, you see them at their worst and you see them at their best. And boy, you really get to know each other when you're in that kind of sort of ordeal element. And I think that, it's not just, when we talk about authenticity, it's not just a matter of being sort of true to our own individual voices, although that's part of it. But it's also a matter of being true across the social dimension too,
Mm-hmm.
to find kindred spirits and connect with kindred spirits, and to begin to relate to other people on the basis of who we really are, as opposed to, the masks, as you say, in a very Jungian way, the putting on of masks of this and that, and well, here's my mask I have to wear today. There's a kind of camaraderie is not a bad word, I think, for it, because it goes, there's a difference between a friend and a comrade, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just because you have a friend doesn't yet mean you have a comrade.
Mm-hmm.
A comrade is a friend, but a friend that you've been through something together with.
Yeah. And the other thing about that is, we talked about this, I think, in our last video, of the fear, the idea of those bumper stickers that say "no fear."
Yeah.
So there is a palpable fear to being authentic.
Oh yes, yes.
There's a palpable fear to being genuine with that.
Mhm.
Um,
That's why it requires courage, because
Yeah.
courage is a relation to fear. It's
Yeah.
not the absence of fear. This is something I feel like a bomb I have to defuse in our culture.
yeah,
Like, people get the idea that, well, if you don't feel fear, then you're courageous, and that's not true at all.
yeah,
Right? The idiot is the person that doesn't feel fear, not necessarily a courageous person. So the courageous person is the one who does feel fear and yet moves forward anyhow.
right. And it's in sometimes the most mundane of situations, like my friend with her niece. There was a fear, I'm sure, with her to alienate the niece by not enabling, by saying, "No, I can't help you. You should have figured this out at 28 or whatever. I'm not your mother, in other words, and I'm not going to be. So there's that the risk. There's a risk, which carries fear with it, but then there is also coming out the other side of that. There's a genuineness and an opportunity to have that camaraderie built. That, like maybe on the other side, the girl saying, I appreciate you not bailing me out this time, because I guess that's happened to me my whole life, which is exactly how that turned out in the end. And that was the first time that had happened. So it works both ways. I guess what I'm saying is it's a two-way street. There can be opportunity for growth on both sides.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I think growth. We grow by way of our struggle very often to be authentic, to be true to what we are. The other side of the coin is, when you think about it, what's the real cost of disappointment? And I think the answer is, well, the cost and the risk and the fear we have is that other people won't like us anymore, or won't want to connect with us, or will abandon us, like at some level, or that they'll have a negative judgment of us in some way. They'll see us in a negative light. But I think that's mostly an illusory fear, not because they won't, but because it's inevitable that people will be disappointed in you, in me, and in you, oh gentle viewer. It's inevitable that each one of us, because it's part of our human lot, part of our human fragility and fallibility, that will disappoint others sometimes, like we won't rise to the occasion, that it's inevitable. So in a way, we don't really need to worry too much about disappointing other people, because it's inevitable. It's sort of like worrying about dying or something. It's like, well, you will. Right. You can stop worrying, like you will die, so you can stop, or worrying about suffering for that matter. It's like you can stop worrying about whether you're going to suffer, because you will, no matter what you do. So, and I think that no matter, Mother Teresa probably disappointed people. Like this is one thing I've learned in life, is that no matter what you do, no matter how nice you are, no matter how accommodating you try to be, no matter how adept you get at putting on different masks, you're going to disappoint people.
Well, and that speaks to, there will always be people that look for the disappointment.
Oh yeah,
they look for it,
exactly.
And it feeds them the way oxygen feeds their lungs and their metabolism.
Yeah, well, it's an easy thing to sort of see the glass half empty. And to see the glass of other people as being half empty, to look for other people's faults and failings and so on, and have that be the main thing. And there's certain people, you're right, Mark, that sort of make a career out of that.
So if that is, so I guess here's my challenge to all of us is to learn with intention to be authentic and to be fearful in the process.
Yes, to be fearful. I think that is very important, to feel that fear, because until we feel that fear, we have no opportunity for real courage, because courage is a certain relation to fear. And a lot of the time, Abraham Maslow, the famous humanistic psychologist, said that at one level, self-actualization has to do with making the growth choice rather than the fear choice. What's self-actualization? Self-actualization, okay, fancy phrase for sort of fulfilling our deeper potential as the unique human beings we are. Like what that process is really about is coming to various points in our lives where you sense that there are two paths you can go down. One is sort of the path that will keep you safe, and that's the fear-based path. And the other one is the growth path. Which is the thing that would probably not make you safer, but that would call something deeper out in you.
Or and sort of in a comedic way, I think this is a line you said before when you come, Yogi Berra, when you come to the fork in the road, take it.
Yeah.
Right. So don't withdraw from, don't shy away from that growth potential.
Or at least, at the very least, see if we can be mindful that life is actually offering us a choice. I think a lot of the time we're so afraid of disappointing others that we won't even let ourselves recognize that there is a choice involved, right?
Yeah.
That this point in the road, where you could choose path A or choose path B, and path A might entail disappointment and scariness and fear and so on, and path B might be sort of the easy, socially well lubricated way that sometimes life is asking you to do the easy thing to get through so you can get to the end of the day, and sometimes it's actually asking you to do the hard, difficult thing that might make you seem like a dubious person or a monster even, or someone who's silly, or someone who is not easily affirmable. Like life is actually asking of us at points to be unaffirmable.
So my takeaway would be for us to approach life every day mindful of having choices.
Yeah, mindful of having choices, and sometimes finding the courage to strategically disappoint others and possibly even disappoint ourselves.
I like that, strategically disappointed.
Okay, thank you for joining us.
Yep, thank
today.
you very much.
We've enjoyed the conversation. I have at any rate. I think you have, Mark.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I've not been disappointed.
Oh, my goodness. Touche, monsieur.
See you next time.
See you next time. Bye-bye. That was good.